une machanges nekuti muridzi wenyaya akazoiudzwa kunyangwe hazvo maminista ana Mombeshora akamhenga kuda kuwanda kuti muchipatara zvirimo muchipatara muna chinhu ende pane zvimwe zvinhu zvisingade kuti uzvinyadzise pamberi pavanhu kacho kuti unoti endai pagomo munoona vatori pagomo izvo zvatoona kuti hapana chinhu chiripo saka Ministry of Health minister vakundikana chokwadi magetsi anoenda pagoma awa vanhu vanotoyamwisa akabata tochi so vakomana kuyamwisa usina magetsi kumatadza kuteka solar. Minister of Health ngotsvagoma solar ipo paipai kuti anongotiwo magetsi akaenda anongobadza malights unosvika pagoma pakanyarara kuti magetsi aenda tina minister magulovhos chaiyo kushandisa nyaya hapana ari kutonetsa pagoma asi tina minister varume vision 2030 avakwana ava ana Mombeshora but tikada kutora nyaya idzi dzeservice delivery chinyarira hapana kwatiri kuenda mwana ngachiti ndiri hama yemukuru ndiri hama yani but reality background hapana zviri kubatika tida kumbobvisa nyaya dzehama president muzukuru wangu president sekuru wangu hatisi kumbomurambidza kuti ave sekuru wako ndikule vako it's fine but basa apa ibva munoonana kule kudheni because pabasa chaipo haana chaari kuita Mombeshora. Ministry of Health yakaoma kumana ucha haina gumbo munhu akaremara ndase indinda kubata ucha rekabhedhesa kudaiso kuti usaende kugumbo rukoko Ministry of Health vafeila vaMombeshora kurizaine kako man zvinonyadzisa kudzingwa tarisai amunangagwama ndiye one munhu wandikaona asingajaidzi anodzinga ipapo anodzinga amire ku makundika hamuna chirimo muzvipatara umu vanhu vari kungofa unoenda pagomo ipapo uchaye kuti utakuro chai especially president ari kuvasapota aenda anotsvaga ndege vane ndege vakomana watopionzi paitika maaccident munodzore ndege dzaya dzinofura zvichitonorescue vanhu iwewe basa rako chete chisosa mana ndatungatadze kuisa solar pare hospital parenyatiko kuisa solar chete kuti zvinhu zvioneke waremerwa saka ari kuitei minister muzvipatara muna syringe iri kunzi $46 takumhanya anotenga kumafamasi so vaMombeshora vari kuitei ndiminister varida comfort takuromba kwake ovhurirwa do morning chef chishefu ichi hachina zvatiri kutipa vhumai musiye ipapo ndotorangarira VP vachiwenga zvaive nani varume izvo zviri muzvipatara maasirias chiuyai kumapolyclinic kuno kumuone kutambudzika kuri kuita vanhu iyo mapolyclinic iyayaya kungosvika pedo apa chaipo pabudiriro apa ndo imwe challenge futi iri kuchemwa nevanhu kungouya pabudiriro ipapa mukadzi akazvitakura kugomo havachatodi kushanda mapolyclinic munhu angoti auya arwadziwadzi chimbomirai haari kure kugomo havachatodi kushanda zvichibvira kupi kumusoro tokumbirisa vaMombeshora zvarema muzvipatara hamuna chirimo takamboshitaura budirai pachena president hatisi kuzombokusiyai muchirasisa president like zvamakamboita kuna Mugabe vaMugabe vakarasiswa zvinoisida kutaura chokwadi president muchipatara hamuna chirimo magetsi ari kuenda vanhu vari toyamwisa mwana vakabatidza matochi tokumbirisawo ongororai nyaya yehealth vanhu vakawanda vari kutambudzika vanhu vakawanda vari kuchema nayo takutokumbira kumutungamiriri vaiongororewo tinodhizeva kurarama life yakanaka varume ndiyo nyika yedu ino yeZimbabwe handingati ndarwara ndonorapwa kuSouth ndodzoka ko ndikafira iko no hatifaniri kunorapwa kuSouth Africa health yedu ngaiongororo asi ndaikumbirisa mutungamiriri hatigoni kuramba maappointment amakaita asi chokwadi chaicho comrade president vanhu vafeila ndine urombo mukuru nematauriro asi chokwadi chaicho vari kumashure kwenyaya havasi kudhonza muri kukakata mega shumba zvino hatichakusiyai muchikakata futiyo maminista vakundikana shumba muramba angave mashoko anenge kunge ndakushora mukuru bhodzi ndiwo vakaapoinda aiwa mukuru handisi kukushorai asi chokwadi chaicho Ministry of Health Ministry of Energy aiwa varume havafeila vakundika shumba muramba.
Masquera say, Mure Zimbabwe, welcome to our channel Zim Confessions and Deep Secrets. Kanagarke kutanka kukuhepa na channel, please don't forget to subscribe. Kanochingwa gara waka subscribe, but don't forget to comment and share this video. Nasi Mure Zimbabwe takigira inyaya ya buditswa na Ruben Mbofona Ruben tendai mufoma vanova a social justice advocate and a writer vabuda vachitaura about kuabviswa kuruta constitution napresident Emmerson Mnangagwa pamwe chete nebato rezanu PF. Vabuda vachitaura vachiti no one is above the constitution. Zimbabweans must say no to term extension. Vabuda vachitaura vachiti Zimbabweans must never allow their country to backslide or let their hard-won rights to be stripped away. In 2018, millions of Zimbabweans made history by overwhelmingly endorsing a new constitution in a national referendum. More than 97% of voters approved this supreme law, which was heralded as a bold step towards accountable governance, democratic renewal, and the rule of law. It was not a partisan document. It was a social contract between the people and those they elect to serve. And its core lies a simple but profound principle: power must be limited and accountable. That is why it enshrined term limits for the presidency, fixed durations for parliament and local authorities, and rigid procedures for any amendments that affect these core democratic safeguards. Today, that hard-won constitution is under threat. A growing and coordinated campaign by President Emmerson Mnangagwa's loyalists seeks to undermine it by deferring the 2028 elections. Their intention is to extend the tenure of not only the president but also members of parliament and ward councillors beyond their constitutionally prescribed term. This is not just a technical matter, it is an assault on Zimbabwe's democracy, an insult to the people's will, and a getaway to authoritarianism. Let us be clear about what the Constitution says. Section 91(2) categorically disqualifies anyone who has served 2 terms from running again for president. Section 95(1) states each term is 5 years. Crucially, Section 328(7) provides that if any amendment seeks to extend the length of the president's term, that extension does not apply to the person who is the president when the amendment is made. In simple terms, Mnangagwa cannot legally benefit from any attempt to change the rules while still in the office. This clause was deliberately included to prevent the self-serving manipulation of constitution provisions by sitting leaders. Its purpose is to protect democracy from the very kind of power grabbing we are witnessing today. Likewise, Parliament and local councils cannot extend their terms arbitrarily. Section 143(1) fixes Parliament's term at 5 years from the day the President-elect is sworn in, while Section 158(1) mandates that general elections be held within 30 days before that term expires. Section 2771 imposes the same time limit on local councils. Any deviation from these timelines would be unconstitutional and illegitimate unless sanctioned by a formal amendment process. That process is no walk in the park. As outlined in Section 328, any amendment to the Constitution must be passed by a 2/3 majority in both houses of Parliament. If it seeks to alter entrenched provisions like presidential term limits, it must also go to a national referendum. That means any attempt to extend terms will require the consent of the very people whose rights and voices are being undermined by the proposal. This is where Zimbabweans must rise in defense of their constitution. Let us not be misled. Term extensions are not mere administrative tweaks. They strike at the heart of the democratic accountability. Allowing leaders to overstay their mandates erodes public trusts, undermines the legitimacy of future elections, and sets dangerous precedent. If it happens once, what stops it from happening again? Zimbabwe has already paid a steep price for weak institutions and leaders who view themselves as indispensable. We dare not repeat that tragic history. Citizens are not powerless. The Constitution arms them with tools to resist such abuse. Section 85 empowers any Zimbabwean, even without a personal interest, to approach the courts to protect constitutional rights. Public interest litigation is a legitimate and powerful avenue to challenge unconstitutional amendments or bills. Civil society organizations and concerned individuals can file urgent constitutional court applications to block unlawful extensions. Beyond the courts, Zimbabweans have a constitutional right to resist such undemocratic maneuvers through civic activism. Section 59 guarantees every citizen the right to campaign peacefully, demonstrate, petition authorities, and participate in governance. This empowers Zimbabweans to mobilize, march, sign petitions, and educate their communities on the true meaning of the Constitution and the grave threat now being posed to it. These rights must be exercised vigorously but peacefully. Above all, we must cast away fear, for fear is a luxury we can no longer afford at this critical juncture. Silence and inaction will prove far more costly in the long run, as our country's democratic future hangs in the balance. We must also use the power of the pen and the microphone. Advocacy through independent media, social platforms, and citizens' journalism can raise awareness, exposure, manipulation, and build national resistance. In a country where state media is often complicit, alternative information channels becomes vital lifelines for democracy. The rural population, often a target of misinformation and coercion, must be a focus for civic education campaigns to ensure they understand that any extension of terms without a referendum is unconstitutional. Importantly, we must not let Parliament off the hook. Citizens must lobby MPs across the political divide. Every ruling party legislators must be reminded, if they endorse this betrayal of the Constitution, history will not remember them as representatives of the people, but as enablers of authoritarianism. They must also understand that any such amendment, according to Section 3287, will not benefit Mnangagwa anyway. So, why destroy the Constitution in exchange for political favors that will never materialize? To support these changes merely because they too stand to gain through term extensions is a short-sighted and self-service act of political greed. History will judge them harshly, not as patriots, but as opportunists who sacrificed national principles for personal gain. On the regional and international front, Zimbabweans and civil society must call on SADC and African Union and the United Nations to monitor these developments closely. Diplomatic pressure may not always yield immediate results, but it plays a crucial role in delegitimizing the unconstitutional conduct and deterring impunity. However, it is important to recognize that the international community can only respond meaningfully when we as Zimbabweans take the lead in showing our collective outrage and rejection of these unconstitutional amendments. As long as we remain passive, leaving it to political leaders, civil society organizations, and a few vocal individuals to raise the alarm, our protest will be perceived as the concerns of a small minority. The international community cannot be expected to act on what appears to be isolated dissent. That is precisely why SADC did absolutely nothing in response to the blatantly fraudulent 2023 elections, despite its own observer mission releasing a damning report. Until millions of ordinary Zimbabweans speaks out loudly and publicly, expressing clear opposition to these threats to our democracy, our calls for international solidarity will continue to fall on deaf ears. Silence and indifference only embolden those bent on subverting our constitution. Peace, stability, and meaningful development cannot coexist with a government that tramples on its own foundational legal document. The responsibility to defend our democracy begins with us. We have seen this movie before in Uganda, Rwanda, and other nations, where the removal of term limits led to authoritarian rule and deepening democratic decline. But we have also seen the opposition. In Zambia and Malawi, citizens stood firm. They mobilized legally, peacefully, and persistently, and they won. Constitutions were protected, and democracy lived another day. Zimbabweans can do the same. At stake is not just the future of one leader, one parliament, or one council. What is at stake is the soul of the nation, the very essence of constitutional democracy. This is not a partisan issue. It is not about ZANU-PF or the opposition. It is about all Zimbabweans, rural, urban, young, and old. defending the most important covenant they have with their leaders, the Constitution. As Thomas Jefferson wisely said, the price of liberty is external vigilance. Zimbabweans must be vigilant. They must say no. They must defend what is theirs. The Constitution belongs to the people, not to Emerson Mnangagwa, not to Parliament, not to any political elite. It is time for every Zimbabwean to rise, not with weapons, but with words, with actions, with unity, and with the law. The Constitution must stand, and no one, not even the president, is above it. The Zimbabwean situation, comment section.